Kris, I feel like every time I have you on my show, I have some negative news coming our way with taxes and who's scamming what and whose hands in my pocket. Well, today's show is definitely no different. Let's change gears, though. Before the commercial, we were talking about tax credits, political tax credits, and per vote subsidies. One story that hit in 2020, and this is going back, almost 2 years ago now, was that, and I remember made headlines, was that political parties were collecting the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, the CEWS, C-E-W-S. That happened, right, across the board federally. But there was, I think, one party that held out. Tell me what happened there with the CEWS.
Isn't it interesting? So you can find all of this data on our website if you want to go take a look at yourselves. You can click right through to Elections Canada, CRA, all that jazz. So basically, folks will remember during the pandemic, the worst parts of it, they rushed a lot of federal money out the door. It was supposed to be one of those, oh my goodness, this is a huge emergency. Through no fault of their own, a restaurant is shut. So a waitress isn't able to work or she's on majorly reduced hours. Same thing for hair salons. Your hairdresser isn't able to get enough of the girls there in their chairs. And so she was having to have some help with paying her employees. That's what this emergency wage subsidy, most people thought, was for. Turns out the vast majority of federal political parties and a healthy chunk of provincial political parties took some of that money for their employees. And again, this is for people at political party headquarters, not people working on the Hill, not people working at Queen's Park. And it's to the tune of millions of dollars. The one federal party, as far as we can tell, who didn't take the money, the Bloc Québécois.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you reason that? I'm curious. Do you have any idea as to why?
That's a great question. It actually came up during the last debate. If you take a look back at the last federal debate, they seem pretty clear that, hey, we're going to, we didn't take the money. Have you paid it back yet? And we've been asking that now of political parties since they first took it. And we're getting crickets back when we're asking them, hey, that wasn't fair. You shouldn't have taken that money. You need to pay it back. Because most people who have ever worked for a political party know that you can do that job from home most of the time with a laptop.
Right.
This is not a construction site that was shut down. This is not a restaurant that was shuttered because of this pandemic. They didn't need to take this money, but they did it anyway.
My goodness. And now I remember that this was an issue featured in the federal conservative leadership. Yep. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought every candidate of the four that were in the final ballot or that were past the final threshold, they all committed to paying back that money, that CEWS money, if they became leader. Well, guess what? Aaron O'Toole was one of those candidates, and he is the leader. Did he pay it back?
Not that we know of. It's really difficult to get answers, as you can imagine.
Well, to me, that'd be something I would brag about. If I were the leader of a party and I said, hey, we have this money, but you know what? We're giving Canadian taxpayer monies back. I would have talked about that in the election.
You'd think so. But after the huge broken promise on like carbon taxes, for example, there's the phone lines aren't lighting up. So we're not hearing back from them, unfortunately.
Okay, and do we know what the final tally is of how many millions of dollars that these political parties netted from this program that was meant for the hair salons and restaurants?
We'll have to wait and see until all of the smoke clears, whether or not they paid it back or not, but we're talking millions of dollars. To give you an idea, here in British Columbia, as far as we can tell, and again, based on the data that we can see, it looks like the BC Liberals took the most of any provincial political party, more than $300,000.
Oh, wow.
That beat out Jason Kenney's United Conservative Party in Alberta, which also took some of this money.
Oh.
So typically parties that you hear talking about taxpayers and balanced budgets and common sense and doing the right thing, unfortunately, you still see them taking this money. And some of them may try to say, oh, well, it was technically allowed. It was within the rules. Just because it's allowed doesn't mean that it's right. Right. And they should pay it back.
Well, okay, and let's talk about that for a moment. Now, I always like to see things from other people's perspective. So if I were running a party and the government, whether, say I was in opposition, it was the ruling government, said, no, you've got to shut down, lock down, COVID's here, we need to get everybody home. Why should that business, because they're not for profits, I suppose, but political parties are sort of like a business. They're fundraising, they're marketing, they're doing their thing. Why should they be treated differently than any other business? There were massive organizations taking CEWS, not just restaurants and salons.
Great question. So we don't think the big corporations should be taking it either, especially when they're giving their executive suite big bonuses just before they sign on for these sorts of aid deals. So an airline, for example, that, days before they sign on to get major money from the taxpayer are giving huge bonuses to their executives that are already making hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not okay. When it comes to political parties, these folks trade in ethics. They trade in what is right and wrong.
Okay, I'm going to pause you there because I think you're going to make an important point. We've got to cut to commercial. We'll be right back.